Welcome to Motherhood. I'm Dr. Christina Hibbert, and I'm here to help you overcome, to become, and to flourish in this ever-transitioning experience we call motherhood. And today we're going to be focusing on one of those main transitions. In fact, it is, I would say, the main transition when we're talking about motherhood, which is when we actually become a mother. The transition of pregnancy and postpartum, and how we can be prepared for that major transition and take care of ourselves in a way that will help us to prevent a lot of the symptoms and consequences that we might otherwise feel or face emotionally and physically when we don't have a plan. And actually today that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about creating a mommy plan. And I will introduce our fabulous guest in just a few minutes. But I do want to say, for those of you who have just tuned in and might be thinking, well, but I'm not pregnant, or I'm not going to have any more kids, or I'm a grandma, stick around, because this show is really for everybody. The things we'll talk about it's really helpful information for anybody that you know that might be thinking about getting pregnant or having a child or becoming a mother. Also, for yourself or for those you love, or for someday for your own daughters and children. But also the things we're talking about, the core of what we're going to talk about really can apply to anybody. So hopefully you'll pick up some new information that can help you to have a plan for whatever life transition you are currently facing. Now, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in each week here on Motherhood. It's such a pleasure and truly an honor to get to spend this time with you each week to talk about these issues that are so important to us as moms and that can help us, as we say, choose to grow through motherhood instead of just going through it. And that's what I'm hoping we'll get to do here today again. In the meantime, I really enjoy getting to connect with you online. Whether on my website, where you can find links to my books and to articles and to a lot of the different things that we talk about each week on the show, or on social media. As you know, we have a Facebook group called Growing Through Motherhood, and if you haven't already, go find it and ask to be added, Growing Through Motherhood, and connect with us so we can get to know you better and hopefully create more shows that are going to be exactly what you want and need to hear. Also connect with us on the other social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube channel. And remember that for many of these shows, including today's show, there are videos of the episode as well. So if you're wondering what the guest looks like or what's really going on, check out the video on YouTube as well. So as I said, we're going to be talking about creating a mommy plan. And it got me thinking about my own plans when I first decided to have a baby. Admittedly, I was young, and this is going to show how naive I was being young. But when you're young, you don't know you're young. You think you're older and more mature and more prepared, and you think you know what you're doing way more than you really do. It's only after that you look back and go, I had no clue, right? So I think about when I was deciding to have a baby. I graduated high school a little early. I graduated college early, so I was 20, and I got married a couple months after I graduated college. And so to me, I was like, well, I've already graduated college. I'm so old and mature, And I was young though, and we got married, and I turned 21 about a month later, and 2 months into it, I didn't like the job I was working at. I knew I wanted to go back to graduate school someday, but I wasn't ready. I just wanted to be a mom. That's all I knew. I just knew that I wanted to be a mom, and I had no clue what that really meant. As many of us don't. We think we do until we're there in it. We think we know what pregnancy is going to be like, or what postpartum might be like, or what the beyond might be like, but we really have no clue. And then once you're in it, you start to go, oh my goodness, what was I thinking? But I knew that I wanted to be a mom, and I really thought that I would, want to be a stay-at-home mom and at the beginning, I thought I might want to have a large family, like 6 kids. It was only after I had a kid that I was like, never mind, I'm never having that many kids. And then, of course, I ended up with that many anyway by, fate. But, so never say never. But just thinking about what I wanted to do, my mom had been a stay-at-home mom, and she would always say that her only goal in life was to be a mother. And we didn't have it easy. She struggled with depression. And as many of you know, my little sister got sick with cancer when she was, 6 and died when she was 8. And, so growing up, there was a lot going on parenting wise, but I don't remember ever talking with my mom about what it was really like. And I don't remember hearing her tell me, like, it's hard to be a mom, or this is what you can expect in pregnancy or postpartum. And I didn't know to ask. I just didn't understand. And it wasn't until after I actually had a baby and had postpartum depression, and then had another baby and had postpartum depression and anxiety, and finally started studying, went back to graduate school and started studying psychology to become a psychologist, and emphasized, my studies on women's mental health, and especially, motherhood and pregnancy and postpartum, that I started to actually talk with my family about this stuff. And it wasn't until then that I realized that my grandmother had pretty significant postpartum depression. She just told me one day, but this is the problem. We don't talk with our families. We don't get that wisdom. And that's one thing we're going to be talking about today is, using the wisdom of other people, generations, and cultures in order to help ourselves have the best possible experience. And, we also can help each other by having that wisdom and understanding, by helping other people know, hey, this is what you might expect. These are the myths, but this is what you might really expect. And this is what it really is going to do to your body. And this is what it might really feel like afterward. And even though you really want to be a mom, you're going to be so exhausted and it's going to be hard. But you know what? We can do it together. We need to help each other. So that's why I'm thrilled to do today's show, because I hope there are women out there listening who will use this to, be better prepared than I was, certainly, for my first several children. I feel like I started to try to get prepared for the second and better for the third, and then the fourth, as everybody knows, was a whole crazy, chaotic mess as I suddenly became a mom of 6. But it's something that we all need to talk about. And again, take what we're talking about today and apply it to whatever life transition you're currently going through. And we will all be able to have a better plan in place to help us through those transitions. Now, I am thrilled to get to introduce our guest. Today we have with us Valerie Lynn. Valerie, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Christina. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Valerie reached out to me several months ago, and we just had a great phone call talking about what we both do and what we're trying to do to help women, and especially women during pregnancy and postpartum. And I really loved what she had to say. And so it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Let me tell the people a little bit about you, and then we'll start talking. So Valerie is she's an author, first of all, of a book called The Mommy Plan. And we will be sharing a little bit of that book today with you. So you can find that book, and you can also find her on her website, which is called postpregnancy.wellness.com. Postpregnancy.wellness.com. All one term, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can find her there. And she's also a traditional postpartum scholar. She's a cultural advisor to the sacred pregnancy movement in the United States. And she's lived and worked and studied around the world. So she spent 16 years in Asia. And she, as you'll see today, she learned a lot from being in these other cultures, which she brings to her book and also to what she does with her work and what she'll talk about today. She's also on the governing boards of the Afterbirth Project and the International Maternity Institute. And she is the International Country Co-Coordinator of Malaysia for Postpartum Support International, which is how we found each other, I'm sure, through PSI. Wonderful organization. And she's done a lot of great work there. And of course, also Valerie is a mom. She has an 8-year-old son. And so, of course, she gets it too. All right. So let's just jump right in, Valerie. Let's talk about what the Mommy Plan is and why women would need it. First let's talk about what you mean by the Mommy Plan, and how did this kind of concept come up with you as far as why women might need something like this?
Well, through my own experience, of course, whereby I was living in Malaysia at the time with my husband and became pregnant. And then we had planned on moving back to the U.S. And so Jordan was made in Malaysia and then born in America.
Wow.
And when I was in Malaysia and I was seeing all my friends were having, giving birth and having beautiful babies, and they were having all these wonderful treatments and diets and foods that they were eating, and how their recovery was really strong in as little as 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
And so when I came back here, assuming we were America, we have every known nationality almost and ethnicity. I figured that this was the same here, but it was far from that. So I wound up having my son in May 2007 and then returning to Malaysia in August 2007.
Mm.
And I then took a very high profile job in Malaysia and realized after a few months that I self-diagnosed and had postpartum anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Malaysia, it just so happened that they have the lowest postpartum depression rates in the world
Wow.
at 2.9%.
Wow.
And yes, and that's
let me explain to people, like here in the United States, for postpartum depression, it's about 20%, 16 to 20% ish. So that is very low.
Yeah, as in official rates. Unofficial rates are much higher.
Yeah.
Here. So after about going through that and being I self-diagnosed after maybe about 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then because the depression, the PPD is so low there was no one talked about it. I didn't meet anyone who had PPD or other emotional illness for 10 years until PSI asked me to become involved. And then I began meeting people, but it's just so low there. So I found out, I was wondering why, because they don't have a good diet. It's not like a Japanese diet. I lived in Japan as well with very good diets. They have curries and high sugars, one of their major exports. So I was looking at I delved further into it. I just became fascinated by it. And it turns out that they have the most amazing postpartum traditions and heritage and knowledge that they have from combining three cultures of the Chinese, Indians, and the Malays.
Wow. So let's stop here and kind of explain this. So here you became pregnant in Malaysia. You came back to the United States and gave birth. Eventually moved back to Malaysia, and it wasn't until several years later, after having suffered postpartum depression, that you started to get involved in this community and started to do some research on your own to see, that the people there really did have these lower rates. So we're talking obviously about postpartum depression and other types of emotional disorders like anxiety that can happen in pregnancy and postpartum. And so you found that it wasn't the diet, but that they have this support system. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning, this that we might lack that. So is that what you kind of feel like, is that we lack that here in the United States compared to what they have over there? And explain what you mean by this kind of wisdom and support. Like give us an example of one way that maybe it's passed down better in Malaysia than here.
Well, they're like a mid-income modern economy. So they're modern moms there too. And so what they have there is actually the social support. So a doctor's responsibility ends with the birth of a healthy baby, and then the healthy mom come back 6-week checkup. They're done. So right after childbirth, the social aspect and social customs, they take over, and so they're so ingrained and they've been passed down. We did have these in America, but we lost them with the medicalization of birth, like when birth began being moved into hospitals. That was a status symbol. Over there, even though births are beginning to be moved more into the hospitals, they still retain the postnatal heritage because it's so ingrained in society as in their customs, and it's linked to the cultures. It's the Indian culture has theirs, and the Ayurvedic method for the 22 days of confinement, well, healing, I'll say. And you have the Chinese. That's the 30-day. Everyone knows that's called the baby moon. So the baby moon here has been marketed to be before the baby, but it's not. It's actually, it comes after the baby traditionally, and that's where they have their healing.
And I think a lot of our listeners might have never heard of that. So that's 30 days of sort of lying in and being taken care of.
It's resting, bonding with the baby. They do call it the lying in, but I don't want people to think you're just lying on your back and doing nothing. It's more about just healing, bonding with the baby, getting the right foods, of course not doing heavy lifting and things like that. So it's really your downtime, and we are allotted that downtime in the U.S. So I'm trying for us to make more of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the customs that really resonated with me, because I knew it could be more easily applied and applicable and manipulated for a U.S. diet and lifestyle, was the Malay way,
Uh-huh.
which is 44 days.
Mm.
And this is they can't even tell me why it's 44 days. It goes by the moon cycle, and you add
Mm.
a couple of weeks and a couple of days, so it's roughly 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And their diet, lifestyle, their diet, activities, and personal care, it just really revolves around the mother, including the body treatments and the different healing herbs. And so that's the one that I focused on, that the mommy plan stems from. So I
Gotcha.
took it and I tweaked it for a Western diet and lifestyle. And I also put food science, anatomy, and medical science behind the core tenets of what they follow, so we
Good.
could understand it for the mainstream mommies here.
Love that. Okay, so you took what they're doing over there and you tried to kind of adapt it to our culture over here, so that when you read the book, The Mommy Plan, you can, you'll relate to some of the things there, and there are things that we can do here. There are, like you say,
Yes.
foods that we have here and practices we can do here. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk a little bit about. So I really appreciate what you're saying, because when we teach about perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, we always talk about other cultures and how, so many other cultures have these kinds of beneficial and sort of pro mother healing traditions. Like in the Latin cultures, they have La Quarantina, that's, kind of a similar thing. So this does happen. And for our listeners, just to help them understand, this isn't just Malaysia, it's not just in Asia, this does happen in a lot of other cultures, whereas more of the Western societies don't practice that anymore. And I think your point about that we used to do that is really helpful. I mean, obviously, before we went to the hospital, you'd have your baby at home, and hopefully people would take care of you at home. But now we have it where we're supposed to go to the hospital, have the baby, come home a day or two later, and barely have time to get back on your feet before you're back to work, you're back to taking care of everything, and we don't have that healing time. So that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about a plan for healing. Would you say that's
Yes.
true? Yeah.
Yes. And to answer your previous questions quickly, because I never
Yeah,
answered
sure.
how I became the mommy plan, was we all have a birth plan,
Yeah.
but we went to the hospital, and how that we have a baby plan
Yeah.
in what we, have our house and what we need, but there's no mommy plan. So this is the third plan that focuses on the mommy, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to recover, to better take care of the baby and the house and life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's such a good point. I mean, all of you listening, think about it. You probably had a birth plan, and you probably had some kind of plan of, what you're going to do with the baby. You prepared, you got the car seat and the crib and all the stuff for the baby.
Yes.
And then it's like, not only do you feel like, I know a lot of women feel this way, that after the baby's born, it's like there's all of this attention on you when you're pregnant, and then the baby's born and the mom's just totally forgotten. It's all about the baby, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. It needs to be about the baby, but we also mustn't forget ourselves, whether it's other people remembering us or ourselves, remembering ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves too. So I really love this concept of, it's so important to have our mommy plan in place as well. Now, one thing that you said, first of all, let me read a little excerpt from your book that I thought was helpful. This kind of explains the mommy plan. So this is on page 19, and it says the mommy plan is a mother's post-pregnancy plan. It is a plan that should be customized to her own physical and emotional needs to enable her to recover in a safe, strong, healthy, and above all, balanced manner. We're going to talk about that because I like how you say that, balanced manner. And then she goes on and says, it is my conclusion that women in America and other Western countries are recovering in an unbalanced manner, which is leading to an extended postpartum related emotional illnesses or complications previously mentioned. So again, like we've been talking about, it's this unbalance that's the problem. So talk
Mm-hmm.
to me a little bit about what you mean by balanced versus unbalanced manner.
Okay. When these cultures, like I'll just refer to the Malay culture because it's the
Okay.
easiest.
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
define. So with the Malay culture, you focus on two things: the baby and yourself. And taking care of yourself relates to the baby because you can give better quality care and attention. Okay, so you have this time that is dedicated. It's not a question. It's not thinking you're sorry, I keep hitting the microphone, being lazy or anything. that they realize what you need and the state that you're in. So if you think about it from a second world economy and even third world economies like China, Indonesia, Vietnam, so forth, and African countries, they allot, every person in a family is important, but they allot this time because they realize the mom needs this downtime, complete downtime, absolute downtime, to recover, to come back to be a contributing member of the family and to take care of the baby. So it's not even questioned. Here we will question that. So they are getting a more steady, balanced recovery. Now, so if you get back to something called the humoral theory of medicine, where as it's applied to the pregnancy period, women are an incubator. We're an incubator for the baby because we grow the baby, so our basal body temperature rises 0.5 degrees to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and it remains elevated. As soon as we birth the baby and the placenta, the basal body temperature decreases 0.5 to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. So we shift into a cold state. So all these traditional time periods are all about consistently raising that body temperature back to normal. Because we can function when we're pregnant, but you get baby brain, you get a little this and that happens. And so you can function. It's the same in a cold state. But what happens with the cold state is, like in a Western country, we don't know the activities we should avoid or engage in, how to take care of ourselves, what foods to eat and what not to eat. And so what we're doing is we're doing things that are consistently interrupting many times a day, the rebalancing of the hormones, and then the physical recovery of the body temperature raising. Because after childbirth as well, your circulatory, digestive, and your metabolism stall because you've gone through a traumatic life event. It's natural, and you recover natural, and that's where everyone falls short of thinking, oh, I've had the baby, you'll recover natural, pregnancy's natural, birth's natural. Well, there's complications that happen. Right. And even if you go through a beautiful pregnancy and birth, you need to help your body heal, just like if you're in an accident or you get hurt, or if you have a big cut, you're not going to leave it and you're going to get a bad infection. You're going to put salve on it and wrap it and just help it, help your body. Right. Because we are pregnant, pregnancy is roughly 280 days. So within the first 6 weeks, 80% of the hormonal rebalancing takes place and 90% of the shrinkage of the perineal organs. That's only 15 to 20% of the entire time we're spent pregnant. 80% happens and 90%. Wow. So it's a massive transition that happens like really quick.
Yeah. So let's break it off here and kind of help everybody understand what you're talking about, because this is really important. So we do our body. I like what you said, that it's a natural, but it's still traumatic. And I think a lot of times we think, well, those are opposites. It can't be the same, but it is. It's a trauma, and we don't. You're right. I appreciate what you said about your idea of being balanced as being steady. We don't have steady care, and we talk all the time on here about taking care of ourselves even beyond pregnancy and postpartum, and that continues. I think that unbalanced feeling, sensation continues throughout life because we don't start off with it, and we have a hard time then later implementing some of these things. So what you're talking about is so important. Our bodies change so much. I mean, all of you out there listening, I'm assuming most of you are moms or moms to be or grandmas or moms, and think about how much your body changed during pregnancy and what it's gone through. I mean, really think about what it's gone through, including your body temperature in the beginning, and getting your organs back in shape, your hormones, which is a huge issue when it comes to your rebalancing your emotions. And also, of course, sleep deprivation is going on, and there's just all these things going on, and yet we don't look at like you said, like an accident where we need to take care of ourselves, or like a cut where we really need to stop and bandage it up and practice healing versus just letting it heal, right? So it's kind of, this is more about practicing healing and steadily doing that than just sort of letting your body heal whenever it heals.
Yeah, it makes a tremendous difference. So let me give you a really simple example. Ice water. We love ice water in the United States, and we're served ice water in restaurants and diners. Well, however, a mom is in a cold state after giving birth for at least 6 to 10 weeks. So according to the humoral theory of medicine, we should avoid cold things because think about it. If our body is for producing breast milk, if we're trying to rebalance the hormones, we're trying to raise our temperature, and our body, our circulatory system metabolism is slow, our digestive is slow, you drink a glass of ice water, goes to our stomach. All the energy that is taken from all those other simultaneous activities, rebalancing hormones, breast milk, getting our metabolism, circulatory system going, is going to the digestive system, is going to stop, interrupt it, go to the digestive system, heat that ice water, when it's the adequate temperature, then our body can absorb it, and then all the energy will just go back to the other activities. Mm-hmm. So we don't realize what's happening, that we could do more gentle things. For example, drink warm water, drink room temperature water, have some like a tea where it's really just less of the physical strain we're having on the body that gives a better hormonal rebalancing. Something simple like that makes a difference.
I appreciate that because I'm thinking of ways that this can apply, obviously in postpartum, but also going back to what you just said about pregnant or childbirth being like being in an accident or having a trauma. If you had any other kind of trauma in your life, you'd be more gentle, and you would do these kinds of things that for whatever your needs are. Like I was in a car accident last year and I was rear-ended, I whiplash. And so, I did have to really focus in on my self-care, slow down, stop, put everything else off, rest more, sleep more, try to eat foods that gave me the kind of energy that I needed and the kind of healing that I needed versus just our normal busy lives. So I appreciate what you're saying. And it's such a good point that it's kind of a way to nurture ourselves. And you've also kind of transitioned. So let's kind of talk about a few of the elements of, the mommy plan. And basically we're going to focus in on 3 of the elements that you talk about in your book and hopefully get more in depth in each one. But you already started talking a little bit about diet. I mean, not that water is totally diet, but it falls in line with that. But also, we'll talk about diet, and then we'll move on and talk about personal care, and then we'll talk about activities. And again, even though we're talking in the sense of postpartum, what we can do, having the plan for after childbirth, again, you can apply, all of you listeners can apply these same principles to whatever kinds of life transitions or traumas that you're overcoming in your own life as well. The same principle kind of applies generally as well. So let's get specific though and talk about diet. And, one thing that you say, just to kind of quote you here from your book, you said, caring for yourself immediately after childbirth is crucial to restoring your body in a strong, healthy, and balanced manner. And I really appreciate that word restore. And I think you said that a couple of times. That's our goal, right? We're trying to restore the body's hormones, restore our health and our emotional, energy and strength as well. So how can we do that with diet? What are some things we can do as part of the mommy plan with diet?
Okay. Now, of course, diet doesn't mean dieting. Okay, so you're not like cutting down on carbs, but you are trying to eat better and more wholesome food, less chemicals, less preservatives. Mm-hmm. It's everything that you hear on a daily basis. But right now, really take an active look at your diet and try to go more natural. Mm-hmm. Try to go with to organic, and I know organic can be very expensive. So, but there's alternative ways you can do it, as well as maybe budget throughout pregnancy and spend a little bit more in the first 6 to 8 weeks on yourself.
That's great.
So now, for a specific example, as I said, it really, as I go back and mention the condition of a woman's body after childbirth, there's so much happening and we don't realize this. So just to read a couple out of my book, just to give you an idea, first of all, in a cold state, we are waterlogged, bloated, and swollen due to all the retention of the fluids. We're carrying the excess fat. Sluggish circulatory, digestive, and metabolism. Joint pain, so for reflexin hormone. Sore breasts. You could have a episiotomy, hemorrhoids, tears, hot flashes, cold flashes. Of course, we have vaginal discharge and whatnot. So there's just a lot going on And so that's why we need a little bit, TLC, tender love and care for them ourselves. Now, what I did was I took specific diet recommendations and I broke them down. And then I did more research on them. Now, for example, just things like getting back to the water. The water are liquids, and we breastfeed, those who breastfeed. Okay, we need water. Absolutely, you need water. I'm not saying cutting down on your water consumption at all, but what you need to add to that, because water is a diuretic and brings nothing to the body but rehydration. However, we have so much water in us, it's actually you're topping up the water, so the body is having a hard time losing it the way it should. So water combined with perhaps like say if you do 1/3 water, 1/3 like broths. I'm very big on bone broths, vegetable broth, any kind of that to get more minerals and other type of vitamins into your body, as well as the herbal teas that you take for recovery, for relaxation, for that's all having to do with the mom's health. So, for example, just something like that, and not just water, because the moms focus on the water, and I agree with the water, but mix up the liquids for it, and you got to see what works for you, because every pregnancy is unique. I'm sure you have 6 children. I have 1. I have nothing to compare to. I'm sure every single pregnancy was pretty different.
Yes.
And recovery was I'm sure slightly different too.
Absolutely. So, and that's such a good point, and why I loved that quote I read of yours earlier, that we are each so unique, and what works for somebody else might not work for you, and what works for you the first time might not work the second time. So, be flexible and find what works for you. I really appreciate that advice. I also appreciate what you're saying, because you're right. Water, we always think of, I got to drink water. And a lot of people don't want to drink water. So, thinking of it as liquids and other ways that you can get other kind of nutrients and protein or, minerals or vitamins or whatever it is, you can get a lot of that through liquids if you do it right, like you're saying. And,
yes,
I also want to say, just to kind of make it easy, and maybe you could kind of touch on this too when you talk a little bit more about some ideas for nutrition, because I think a lot of moms, where they get stuck is, I know I'm supposed to do this, but how do I do this? Or how do I make this work? And I appreciated, first of all, what you said about planning ahead. Obviously, this is the mommy plan. We're planning ahead, right? So preparing ahead with finances, so if you want to buy organic foods, or if you want to, get takeout from a place that has some healthy food so you don't have to make it, or whatever, that you're prepared. Also, a lot of people do make meals ahead of time, or prepare something like broth that you can keep and have it ready to go for later, right? Or get the teas that you want so that it's ready to go. And also, I always suggest, once the baby has come, to have you mentioned breastfeeding, and some people are breastfeeding, some people are bottle feeding. Of course, in breastfeeding, we need more of the water, and you really, really need to replenish what your body's giving out. But we all do. We're all recovering, right? Whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding. And so during that time, have a little basket, have a basket with your water or your tea or your whatever it may be in there, and, put a snack of like a high protein snack in there, something healthy that you have ahead of time, that you can just sit there, and while you're sitting there feeding the baby, whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, you can be reminded, okay, I used to have a basket with food, and with a snack, with water, and with like a magazine that I wanted to read, or whatever else I needed for the breastfeeding process, whatever other objects I needed for that day. So that's another way to do it too. So you can prepare ahead of time, you can prepare meals ahead of time, you can plan all this ahead of time, and you can also ask others to help you as well. You don't have to do it all yourself.
Yes. And even for the broth, I'm a big proponent of broth, even just all the time. I even drink it like now. I make it, here. I know it's cold where you are. It was like 1 degree this morning in Brooklyn.
Yikes.
So I'm like, I made my broth this week, and I do it now in the crock pot, and it's so easy, and it's just wonderful. And I drink it like a tea, like a snack. So if you don't have to make it for a soup, I just give it to my son, and so we just drink it like a tea.
That's
and
great.
It just really helps. And
Good
so things
idea.
like that.
And so what are a couple, give us maybe 2 more main points briefly on diet that maybe we could focus on. So one is the liquids, and what are maybe a couple others? Because obviously we're not going to cover it all. It's all in the book, but yeah.
Yeah. also just how you cook too. Really try to avoid your fried foods. Remember, you have to remember the condition of your body. Your digestive system is stalled. So take out takeaway foods and things like that maybe bought frozen from the store. Please check all the ingredients because your body is not going to process them quickly, and they're going to be devoid of vitamins and minerals. Also, I also love leftovers, but really the third time you're really devoid of most minerals and vitamins from a leftover. So you figure you have a dinner, you have maybe two, but the third serving of leftovers is going to be devoid of vitamins, just as a nutritional background. Also, for example, something like tomatoes, like the nightshade group. The nightshade group, if you could avoid them, which actually is a bit hard because it's in pizza and things like that. Tomato sauce. Tomato sauce is very acidic, and there's even a recommendation for people that suffer from arthritis to avoid the nightshades and things like tomatoes. Now, and there's a big studies on it. This is a recommendation to avoid that, or again, I go the 80-20 rule. As long as you can do 80%, you're really good. I'm not going for perfection. It's because you have relaxation hormone in your body, and so your joints are bloated, they're a bit irritated, they could be sore. So this is one of the recommendations.
Okay.
And behind that.
Great. And I love that you said we're not looking for perfection. I like that rule, 80-20. You don't have to be perfect. It's never perfect when it comes to our diet and nutrition. We're just trying to do the best we can and improve a little bit, especially during this time when you need to be taking care of yourself, right?
And it just goes back to understanding the condition that our bodies are in.
Yeah.
We could have if we do things really strong, or we could, eat, lots of ice cream and processed food and pizza and some things that are really heavy, and we'll wind up with constipation, and your breast milk may be affected because your energy levels will be low again, because whatever's happening simultaneously, the energy is going to go to your digestive system.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept that I'd never heard. So hopefully all you listeners are out there soaking that up and trying to understand that a little bit better as well. All right, great. So those are all great suggestions. And as I said, there's many, many more, as well as some recipes in the book, The Mommy Plan. But let's move on to the next topic, which is personal care. And we talk a lot about self-care here. And I know that this is going to be specific for postpartum and during pregnancy and postpartum. So what are a couple, let's just focus on maybe a couple of the main points that we want to point out for moms when it comes to personal care in their mommy plan.
Okay, again, it all goes back to what state we're in right after childbirth, which is a cold state. So one activity personal care habit that I largely promote is the wrapping of the tummy. Tummy and the hips. At first, the first 2 weeks, the hips included, because we open 10 centimeters, we've got to close 10 centimeters. So a gentle but snug push on the hips just makes you feel warmer and more secure, because after childbirth, your core is in a weakened state. It's weakened. We no longer have the baby, but we have the fluid, and we have the loose skin, and so we have the air, and so all of that is being lost at a tremendous rate, especially within the first few weeks, as well as we're in the cold state. So the wrapping of the torso, hips, and that just gives you so much more support, and it holds in the body heat. And it also, as we breastfeed, we slouch. So, even when we hold the baby, we tend to slouch and we cuddle, and we don't realize, like, oh my God, my back's killing me. A lot of people want to go to chiropractors and, getting massages. Well, the wrap, if you do it from just under the bust, down the torso, that actually helps your spine too.
Oh.
And even women wrap their torso, even like after work, and when I'm on a trade show, I'll wrap it when I'm on my feet for 12 hours, and it's great. It feels really good.
See, I've never heard of this, and I think this is a great idea. I mean, it makes so much sense. They massage your belly right after. They're trying to get everything back, and I could see where that would feel so nice to kind of just keep everything tight. Plus, you don't want to feel your belly hanging down anyway. That doesn't feel very fun anyway. So, I mean, I love that idea. I've never heard of that. So that's one thing. So what's another suggestion that you have for personal care? I think that's a great start.
So personally, another thing, again, Malaysia is a tropical country. So even though they're hot, they still follow these recommendations to keep the mom warm. Another one is to avoid cold drafts. Like right now, it's winter out in the in here and most of the, so going outside, making sure you're bundled up because we lose our heat from our head and our feet. So it's about keeping our head and feet warm, and especially even in the house, walk around with socks. They like wear some kind of foot covering or a slipper. That's where we lose our heat. And so when our moms transition back to a non-pregnant state and the rebalancing takes place of the hormones, they're going to be hot flashes, they're going to be cold. A lot of moms have flu-like symptoms without the flu, and actually it's all about the rebalancing. And so they're cold, and you wrap your belly. You don't have to wear a hat inside, of course, unless you want to. Sometimes I do if it's cold.
Yeah, if it's cold, why not, right?
But at least wearing foot covering.
Yeah.
So you don't lose your heat that way. But it's really about trying to keep your body warm. And then as you snuggle, your baby and things, the baby's gonna give you heat, and you're gonna give the baby heat. And so, that's always nice. So the kangaroo care is nice.
So that's a good thing. And it also depends, obviously, on the climate. I know when I had my first baby, it was August, or it was the beginning of September in Phoenix. So it was hot, like crazy hot. And I was crazy swollen because of all the heat and I was just hot all the time. So I didn't have to worry about being cold or like wrapping myself. All I had to do was just be outside or even be in my house with the air conditioning on, and I still felt hot all the time. But I love that that idea of, and like you say, it's a time we want to spend with our baby, cuddling them anyway. You're bonding with them, and this is just kind of, we're swaddling them, so it's kind of like a swaddle for us as well, isn't it?
Yes, and if as you say, you're in Phoenix, it's very hot. If you are in a hot part of the country, but you do feel fluey, you do get a chill, just realize what's happening. And so you'll tend to, it's also great, which I love this recommendation, and I still even use it to this day, hot water bottles and heating pads, or even electric blanket, depending on, even every month, I use my hot water bottle or my heating pad. And so for moms too, infused heat, because I do an infused heat massage for the tummy before the herb paste and the wrapping. Just taking a heating pad, putting it on your tummy, you'll feel amazing. And the infused heat will help your uterus contract at a quicker rate, and you'll get that heat, and it'll be diffused. And I still love your old hot water bottle.
Yeah,
I have
good old classic.
They're like $5.
Yeah, you know what? And another thing that I do is you can easily make a little rice or bean bag that you can put in the microwave and heat up, which my kids love. So you just sew a little rectangle together, fill it with rice or beans, and sew it up, and then you can put it in the microwave for like 2 minutes, and it warms up.
Uncooked, right?
Yeah, of course, uncooked beans, uncooked rice. Thank you for saying that. Otherwise, that'd be a little messy. But yeah, my kids love that, and I love it too. When I'm really cold, I'll put it in my bed by my feet at night, and so that's just a great idea for anybody, anytime too. Let alone, obviously for those of us who have just had a baby, the heating pad and I want to say massage, because I have a massager too that's just like a little back massager that has heat, and so I use that sometimes too, so I get a little massage wherever I feel tense or wherever my body's hurting, and it also produces heat, which I really like, so it helps me relax that way too. So everybody can apply some of these ideas. So the bottom line here is personal care, and a special kind of care when when you've just had a baby, to really see that need for special attention to your body and to the rebalancing of your body and your hormones and what's going on. And again, you can learn so much more about this in the Mommy Plan book. But let's move on to activities. I don't want to run out of time here to talk about all these elements. And so tell us a little bit about some of the, what you mean by activities when it comes to the Mommy Plan.
So, for example, activities, again, you should, the doctors will tell you, don't engage in swimming, for example, because when you go into a pool, it's normally cold, unless it's a real heated pool, and so don't engage in swimming. That actually will dramatically alter your body temperature, like being under an air conditioner. And again, not really listen to your body at this point, and all these recommendations are a temporary thing. They're not there forever. You're not going to have these put on you for the rest of your life. It's just about focusing on you so you restore your body and you're rejuvenated to better take care of your baby.
Right. So this is a specific recommendation. Again, going back to the state that your body's in after pregnancy and postpartum. So avoiding swimming. So I've never heard of some of these. These are really interesting. So I'm sure our listeners are thinking, oh, these are new ideas I've never even heard of. And again, like you say, this is maybe normal practice in other cultures, but in our country, not so much. So, okay. So what's something else when it comes to activities?
I mean, and then just the general things about the, minimizing your visitors. Things that you can, activities that you can do. So there's as you know, in society today, in our culture, there's a lot of post-traumatic events that happen if you have a dramatic birth. So you can also journal that. You could find out what you took, like what maybe pharmaceuticals you were given during birth, if you had a hospital birth, and link that later, and so you have a journal, like where did this happen, when did this happen, type of thing. And my son, it was really hard to breastfeed, so I still to this day have my breastfeeding journal, and I could see like I got up like 16 times, and this breast and that, and so it's just an accomplishment. Oh my God, I went through it, I lived through it, but it's also something just to get through those nights when you're really questioning yourself. So things like having a birth journal is a positive thing for the mom.
I love that. And I'm such a fan of journaling. As people know here, I'm a fan of journaling. We had a show a couple weeks ago on journaling and scrapbooking and kind of ways to keep memories and to live a better life, using it to live a better life. And that's exactly what you're talking about is, keeping track. I remember I used to, you do that for the baby. I remember with my first one, I had trouble breastfeeding as well. And I would keep track of everything that he did and when he ate and when he slept. And so that when I went in for like a lactation consultant for help, they could tell me what to do. And then, I would, at one point, I think, with a couple of my later kids, I started writing down, everything I was or wasn't doing and how I was feeling, and just kind of writing everything down because I wanted to feel better. And I was having a hard time balancing myself back again. And so it's a really great idea to go into it thinking of journaling and using that as a tool, because it's not only giving you information and keeping track of your information, but it's also just that whole process of getting it out of you and onto paper is so emotionally healing as well.
Mm-hmm. Something you could give, like one book that you want to keep in, and I just used a blank notebook. And so I have everything in one thing. I could just look back, not various books, something really simplify it. Yeah. But I think that's also something that moms could do, and they can look back and say, this is what I was doing for the past many months. I did do something.
Right. It can help you see the credit that you really deserve for all the things you actually did do. And that's another thing that I think is wonderful about it. I also appreciated what you said when it comes to activities about limiting certain activities and limiting people coming, that is important. And I think a lot of our listeners might feel like, or might have felt like, I need to let people come and see the baby. I need to let my, family and everybody come. And even if you don't want to, that's a tough part. And in our culture, it's kind of, that's the way it is. Like, you're supposed to be at home recuperating, people come and see the baby, but they come whenever they feel like it. It's not like on a certain timetable where other cultures might have, there's a certain period of time where no one's going to come. They're going to leave the mom to just heal and bond and do these things. And in our culture, it kind of comes whenever. After my fourth baby, because, we had inherited our two nephews right when I had my fourth baby. So I had 5 kids at home, and I had this baby, and it was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And my sister had just died. So I was completely, traumatized in that way too. And luckily my parents were awesome, and they asked what I wanted, because I had all these people coming to visit the baby. Also, everybody was worried about us because it had only been a month since, my nephew's parents had died, and anyway, it was just all this stuff going on, and everybody's concerned about us. So they were trying to check in, and they were coming to see the baby. And the first few days were just, I was trying to be happy and fine and all of that. And finally my mom was there, and she was just like, what do you really want? And I was like, I just want to be me and my husband and the baby. I want somebody to take the kids. I want somebody to take care of them for me for a few days, so I can just, like you say, heal and just kind of exhale and be with the baby and be with my husband. And that's what they did for me. So, we can arrange it too, arrange that kind of help that we might need. And also tell people, no, it's not okay if you come, or, right now I need a break, or come in a few weeks or whatever. I really appreciate your point on that.
Mm.
Okay, so we've talked about the mommy plan, and as I was just talking, just sharing about my experience with my husband and wanting him to be part of the plan, let's talk about the daddy plan, because that's another thing that you mentioned also in your book. And we really must also, I think, as much as we want to nurture ourselves, we need to help them nurture themselves, our partners nurture themselves, and also our relationship. We don't want to forget our relationship as well. So what are a couple things that you suggest for the daddy plan?
Well, the daddy plan, it was well, how I wrote it was I wanted the dads to understand what they can do that maybe wouldn't relate to the baby but would support their partner, and they would still feel like they would play certain roles, because it's assumed a lot of times that the dads will just know what to do, and sometimes the dads don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So some parts of the daddy plan I've condensed, like the conditions of the woman's body, which I've been repeating and feel that that's important. And so, and I also wanted it to like have a masculine type of overture to it. So I had men read it and contribute. I have a female contributes to it as well. But really, I know it's about things that they can do, like kangaroo care, that's so important, and even having things for the mom in place, giving her that cup of tea, making sure she has some water.
Can you explain kangaroo care for those of our listeners who don't know what that means?
Oh, so kangaroo care is just skin to skin care, like we talked about before, holding the baby to the skin. And, whether holding the baby in a carrier or just the daddy just making sure that he has skin to skin care with the baby. If the mom is breastfeeding, a lot of dads just feel like, what else am I supposed to do? Only thing I can do is, change the diaper or feed the baby. So a lot of dads don't realize that if the mom wants to breastfeed, they can help in other ways. So the skin to skin is just having the baby against them, against their skin,
Yeah.
under their shirts.
Yeah.
And the baby gets used to the dad's smell and the mom's smell. I'm sure that, and speaking to the baby. And so things, again, my book is about helping the mom and how the ways in caring for the mom so she can be rejuvenated and restored. So things that the dad can do, such as, again, with meals. I have an ebook that's coming out, is Healing Meals, Simple Recipes for New Moms, that are also written for dads, that are really easy and nutritious and follow the nutritional guidelines.
Yeah, I like that.
That can help the moms, things that she likes.
Yeah.
And so different ways to work themselves in that may not seem super important with respect to the baby, but go a long way and are really important. So it's more of a giving them a direction or a suggestion for the dads that maybe don't get a suggestion from mom or elsewhere, and they feel a bit left out.
Yes.
And they're kind of left on the side, and
Yeah.
so it's for them to give them more of a direction that they can pick up the ball and just get involved in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, and what I appreciate about this is just like we talk about with the mommy plan. If the mom and the dad are creating a daddy plan as well ahead of time, then you're right. He knows what to do. And it's just as confusing. Like I was sharing in the beginning, I had no clue what I was doing. I thought I knew what I was doing becoming a mom, and then it happens and you're just like, what on earth? And I'm depressed, and my poor husband has no clue what to do. But if we could, if you could talk ahead of time and make a plan and know these ways that he could be helpful. And I appreciate what you say. It's really his plan for how to help her heal and how he can feel effective, and also for how he can bond with the baby and be involved that way as well in different ways than he might otherwise expect or know about. So I really appreciate that. So we want to kind of emphasize that again, and not to forget that, our relationships are important, and that our partners are important as well, and our spouses or partners, they can also be part of our plan and have their own plan as well. And that's a whole different show talking about, we've also had a show talking about dads and postpartum depression. So you can look for our show on In Praise of Fathers for more on that, but how they can help themselves. But this is one way that they can be involved with mom as well. So as we normally do, we wrap up the show with my last segment here called Dr. Christi's Simple Solutions. And this is our segment, as all you listeners might know. where I get to share some ideas or products or whatever I think might be helpful related to the topic of the day. So today we are going to have Valerie Lynn stick around and talk to us just for a couple minutes about a few of her products. Obviously, we've been mentioning your book, Valerie, The Mommy Plan, and everybody can check that out. Can they find that? Where can they find that?
I'm on the website, postpregnancy.wellness.com, and also on Amazon.
Okay, Amazon and postpregnancy.wellness.com. You can find out more about the book and also a couple of these other resources that I've asked Valerie to share with us. So share with us a couple of the things you've been doing to help birth professionals, and let's start there.
Well, I've had a tremendous request for online training for a certificate called Traditional Postpartum Practitioner that talks about some of the things that we've discussed here today and looking at healing and recovering in a different perspective that we don't have in the U.S. So it's also training on the wrapping of the torso of the mom and different things, the recipes on how to make the bone broths and how they can be, how the nutrition can be bumped up. And again, we go over nutrition, the diet do's and the diet don'ts, and they understand them.
That's great. So that's for birth professionals mainly, right? So birth professionals can find out information on your website, postpregnancy.wellness.com.
Yes. And also there's the Mommy Plan workshop, just for expecting moms, dads, the grandmas. I've trained it at corporates and locally. And again, it goes into things that we covered today and then in more detail.
So that's the Mommy Plan workshop.
Yes.
Love that. So if you want more information and obviously you can get the book or you can try the workshop out and get in touch with Valerie Lynn through her website, postpregnancy.wellness.com. She has a wealth of information, a lot of new and interesting ideas for how to take care of ourselves in pregnancy, postpartum, and of course beyond. One thing I really appreciate that I kind of want to end up on is, you said your son is 8 years old. You're not pregnant. You're not about to have a baby. You haven't just had a baby, but you still practice a lot of these things that you started when you were pregnant or postpartum. So, yeah.
Actually, all traditional recovery practices link pregnancy recovery to menopause.
Ah, yes.
And I've interviewed many people, many women in Malaysia and in the region out there where they say, we went through menopause, but we had none of the symptoms, the physical symptoms that we have in the West, the negative side effects. They're like, no, we just, stopped getting our period and that was it.
Wow. Now that is something to keep in mind, everybody. So pregnancy through menopause, and you're right, because there are all those hormonal shifts and changes that we keep going through until we go through menopause. So you might want to revisit the Mommy Plan during those years as well.
I also have a new Mommy Wellness Kit that I also have menopausal women that's purchasing it.
Oh, wow.
And for the tea and for the bath and the feminine wash, that they're using it during when they have their periods or those menopausal periods, or they're just feeling a bit heated and whatnot, and so they're using it during that period as well.
Wow.
So it's interesting feedback.
Yeah,
I'm not into menopausal, but they're all using it. So it's something for the future I'm thinking about.
So that's another thing for people to realize. The new Mommy Wellness Kit is another product that you offer. So you guys can check that out as well through the website. Correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Valerie Lynn. We're so grateful for your wisdom on this topic, and I hope everybody will go visit her and learn more about what you can do to help yourself or to help somebody else create a mommy plan before the baby comes, to get you and your partner and your family and your everybody in your life prepared, and to hopefully feel more balanced and more steady. To use your words, as you go through that big transition, that major life transition in your life or somebody else's life. So thank you again. And for all of you listening, I hope you will come back and join us next time here on Motherhood as we grow through motherhood together. And instead of just going through it, it's a lot more fun to grow through it and to do it together each week here on Motherhood Radio. I will see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.